It's a very, very peaceful scene at the moment. Mr. Mfumo, I think it is Mfumo, that has got his head up, or it could actually be Tinyo. Now I can't tell. In this dim light, let's see, it does look like there's a bit of a scar, but now I cannot tell. This is always so difficult. Turn your head completely and look at me, please, Mr. Lion, so I can see your entire face. But anyways, all three of them are still here, which is good to know. We'll work out the dynamics in a moment when they all decide to show us their faces. But they seem to be resting and fast asleep, so hopefully all it takes is just one lion to do a couple of big yawns and then wake up, and hopefully he'll go and greet the rest of his brothers and will encourage them to wake up as well. But it is so quiet out here, as you heard a moment ago. Now I said to Craig, what would absolutely make my day is to have these three Birminghams doing a full roar 6 feet away from the car. That would be unbelievable. I don't know when I last heard more than 2 lions roaring at once. It's been quite a while. I think the last time I had it was when the entire Southern Pride and the Charleston male lions. Oh, hang on. Big yawn. I think let's keep watching these boys, because hopefully once we get one yawn, we're going to get many more. And it's always nice to see down a lion's throat, and particularly to see their beautiful teeth. So yes, that would be my wish for this evening on St. Patrick's Day, is to have the 3 Birminghams do a beautiful roar for all of us. And I kid you not, Craig will have to hold on to that camera. This vehicle will be vibrating so much if that's the case. Now we've just got the 2 here at the moment. And the other Birmingham is just laying out of sight, just underneath the long grass. Come on, guys, we're getting closer and closer to these boys waking up. Oh, this looks like it is Tinyo. Yes, this looks like Tinyo. Mfumo has got that massive scar on his eye, and I thought I did see a scar just off of the left of his face where he lost a canine. He wants to yawn again. But isn't this just beautiful? Now we were lucky this morning just to catch them moving around slightly and getting up and repositioning before they settled in for the day. So hopefully we get the same thing this evening, but just in reverse. Having them wake up and then groom themselves, do big yawns, stand up, do a big roar, and then we can go home. That's how I'm hoping that it's going to go this evening. So if you do have any questions for us, remember #SafariLive on Twitter. But I have to go back to a question that Erica was asking about lions hunting, and if there's any sort of thought process behind it or any strategies that are used. So I'll tell you a really cool story. The one day I sat and watched lions, I kid you not, for about 3 hours. I was out for ages with these guests. I had 3 gentlemen on my vehicle, and it's actually quite a funny story, and I had them for about 4 or 5 nights. We did all sorts of exciting things, but they said they really wanted to watch a lion kill. So I said, we've got to sit with the lions the whole afternoon to the evening if we want to stand a chance, and that's what you got to do with these animals. So sitting, watching the lions, and eventually they started waking up just as these guys are now. They then walked towards a herd of blesbok, which is an antelope species, and chased them around. But they weren't really stalking them, they were just sort of walking towards them in a line. And it was amazing. So these these blesbok kept running. There were a couple of impala scattered between 2, and they chased them to an area almost like this where the grass was really long and it was open, and it was the most spectacular thing. Then the pride split. It was just 2 females and 2 males that were actually the part of the pride that we were watching. The rest of the pride was missing in action. And 1 male and 1 female stayed sitting pretty much right in front of my car, sitting up looking at the blesbok. And the other 2, the other male and the other female, ducked off to the right and sort of stalked very low in the grass. We couldn't see where they'd gone, but we knew that they went sort of a little bit further east. So we sat for 45 minutes in the darkness, and I just quickly popped my lights on, my spotlight on, to have a quick scan around. Nothing. And the next minute I heard an impala snort, and as it snorted, I put my spotlight on again, and we saw that the male and female lion that had snuck off actually sat up in the long grass and exposed themselves. And then as they did that, of course, the impala, the blesbok, it was a complete frenzy. They started running in the opposite direction. And as this was going on, the male and female that was sitting right in front of my car had sort of panned all the way across to the left-hand side, further towards the northwest, where they then waited and sat down in the long grass as the impala and the blesbok were running towards them. The next minute, the male stands up in the middle of the grass, and so does the female, as these impala and blesbok were running past them, and they both snatched an entire blesbok each. So that was really incredible, the way that they'd worked that out. And then you see different types of strategies. Often in prides, you'll have one lioness that they call the runner, which is often the fastest lioness. How they figure it out between them, I'm not sure. If they have lion races, on your marks, get set, go, or who decides on who's the fastest lion. But you'll have that one chasing, and you'll have others strategically placed out in an area, and that lioness will try and chase the prey directly towards the other members. And then, of course, they also just stalk right up and as close as they can get to their prey too. But there's many, many different types of strategies. Come on, boys, wake up now. You're doing a good job. You're giving us a couple of yawns. You're now grooming yourself quite vigorously. And so hopefully they're going to be up soon. So I think that this isn't... Let me turn that down. Now, I think that these two, it's Tinyon and Fumo, they seem to have a strong bond, and Nena, I think, is lying just off on his own. Now, Shana, you are wondering, and your thought is correct, you've said, weren't there 5 Birmingham boys when they started? 100%. There were indeed, but unfortunately one had a nasty run-in with a buffalo and then didn't make it after it sustained some sort of fatal injuries, which was quite sad, but it was natural, and sometimes the prey gets the best of you too, and that's what happens. And that's the thing that we say out here, is in the summer months, once the buffalo have recovered from the harsh winters or the droughts like we've had, there is very few things that can stop a big buffalo bull, or even an entire herd. They are big, and we've seen a couple of massive dugger boys at the moment, and who are, definitely much heavier than what they were during the drought. I just want to call the sighting in very quickly on the radio. Let me do that, because I can hear some talking. Okay, no. Unlock with the 3 Birmingham boys in the same spot, just between Buffalo's Hook, Cutline, and Sandy Patch. Space for 2. They're slowly starting to wake up. A couple of yawns, but now they've gone back down again. I'll keep you updated. There you go. So just chatting to the guys, because I think they've all been seeing flat cats at the moment, and nobody likes to see a flat cat. They prefer to see these 3 big boys in action. Well, they don't look like they're going anywhere just yet, so we're going to sit here for a bit longer and wait for them to wake up. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you back across to Tristan and see if he's going to find some weird creatures of the night. For the lions to, of course, wake up, which they are not doing, which is very disappointing. Come on now, lions. This is absolute nonsense. You've had enough time to sleep, and they tricked me. This is not April Fool's Day. It's not the type of day to just start yawning and grooming yourself and then go back to sleep again. But I'm also not surprised, because these 3 male lions like to do the least amount of work I've ever seen. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, and I love the Birminghams, and I think that they're wonderful. However, they're not the most active cats. Even when they go on territorial patrols, they always just look like, oh, life is so tough. Why do I really have to go out and do this? Can't somebody else do it for me? That's how I always think. Well, that's what I think is going on in the Birmingham's minds. Whereas other male lions, and I know lions have a stigma attached to them, they are lazy. But most of the boys I've seen are always so active and moving around and marking territories, making sure nobody's coming into their areas. And it seems as though these boys only like to do their patrols at 2 o'clock in the morning. So they snooze for as absolutely long as they can, and then the last last bit of darkness in the morning, they seem to, of course, just go back to sleep, or do their work and then go back to sleep for the rest of the day. I think that's what's going to happen here. Now, Aaron, you're wondering if lions hunt during the day and the night. They do indeed. Especially in this area, it's actually quite easy for them at the moment in summer. Like I said, there's plenty of coverage in terms of vegetation around at the moment, so it does make it slightly easier, and they tend to have a better chance of getting closer to their prey, because the closer they get, the better they have of bringing an animal down. When they've got to run longer distances, they tend to run out of stamina and then become exhausted, and then that doesn't work too well from them. And I've seen lions catching wildebeest during the day, zebra during the day, impala, blesbok, you name it. And at night, I've seen them taking down lots of buffalo, kudu, zebra, again, you name it. Very, very different types of animals. And with moms, with lionesses that have got cubs, young cubs, especially if they still haven't been introduced to the pride and they're off in a den site somewhere, you'll find that she'll go out very much like Karula does, the leopard, and hunts during the day too, when the other predators aren't as active. So she tries to move in between those sort of times of the day, which is really quite nice. I think quite clever. Now, another question from Aaron. You've now asked if male lions typically hunt together. Well, it depends. These boys will, because as you see at the moment, they're not with the Nkuhuma pride. So if they are hungry and they're not fat at the moment, from what we saw this morning, they definitely could eat. Their hips are showing. They're still all right. They'll be okay for another day or two, though. And if they go out now on a territorial patrol, which I'm sure they will a bit later when they decide to get up, and they come across something, it could be anything, a buffalo, a zebra, a wildebeest, an impala, you name it, they will try and take it down. And particularly good male lions that I've seen hunting very well and together separated from the pride is actually the Charleston males. And I talk a lot about them just because I spent so much time with them. They were phenomenal. The two of them they'd be together, and then they'd often split up too and go their own ways. And on some mornings you'd come across the Charleston with the tooth that's hanging out of his mouth that got kicked out by a giraffe, or as they say. And he was on a buffalo kill once, twice, 3 or 4 times. I've seen him on his own with a buffalo kill. And whether it was because it was winter and the animals were weakened, that definitely plays a role, which obviously helped him. But male lions are very well capable on their own or together on taking down prey. They're not bad hunters. It's just like with genetics. Some lions, male or female, may be better off than others. Some lions and leopards may be better mothers than others. It's just that type of thing. We see it in nature all the time. But hunting, these boys, I don't know. I've yet to find the 3 of them or the 4 of them on their own kill. Every time I've ever seen the Birminghams on a kill, they've always joined the Nkuhumas, who we know are very, very successful hunters. They do a sterling job, but it's tough now. Tough pickings at the moment. So hopefully we're going to get the big herds of buffalo coming back soon. And when I say big, I don't know if we get masses. Oh, did you hear that big stretch and groan from Tino? That was very funny. Come on now, wake up. There we go, another stretch. Maybe we'll get lucky this time round. I'm also not holding my breath though. Now, Alfonso, good evening to you and thank you for your question. You've asked on this fine summer's evening if lions will mate with their siblings. Or, there we go, come on, do a roll over, come on, do a big yawn. They're rolling over again. Let's watch the act. Oh, no, never mind. Now they've gone back down again. Oh, I thought we were going to get lucky and see another big yawn. Or if they mate with their sort of siblings or any other members in the pride. They do. Incest is completely normal, but normally it weans itself out. So these Birmingham boys are not going to be the dominant males in the pride or in this particular area forever. It'll last a couple of years. If they're lucky, they'll get 3 or 4 years out of it. Maybe if they become exceptionally successful and there are no bigger coalitions of young males pushing in, it might even be for a bit longer. They could be here till about 10 10 years old, but that's quite old for a male to still be holding a very popular territory like this particular area. So it happens for a couple of times. Normally it's okay for 2 or 3 times to have the sort of incest coming through, and it's not a problem. I mean, look at Hosana and Shongile the other evening. We did have a school drive though, and I couldn't quite talk about the mating that goes on between the cats because they were young children. They were only about 5 years old, so I made a joke and said that they were wrestling. But Hosana, from natural instinct, pounced onto Shongile, grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, and actually started mating with her. I don't think he wasn't very successful, but he's getting the motions right, and Shongile didn't seem to be bothered by it at all. So it just shows you that type of thing is completely normal out here. It's not frowned upon. They don't know any difference at all, but it doesn't last for a long time, thankfully. Otherwise, after a couple of generations, 3 or 4 generations, you are going to see a lot of deformities, which is not great, so we don't really want that. But I'm wondering if we should hold our breaths and hang with these Birmingham boys. They're starting to make me a little bit sad now. Wake up, lions, wake up. But we'll give it a go. I haven't sat with sleeping cats for a while, so for all of you, I will do it. But let's hop on board in the meantime with Tristan and see if we can issue him a bush baby challenge. Craig has actually just mentioned, Tristan, that it sounds like one of the Birminghams is dying. Of course he's not, so don't be alarmed. It's just the deep breaths that Tinyo is taking. Oh, bless you, big boy. And in amongst his deep breaths and his sneezing, he's creating some bizarre noises. But Tristan, you're quite right in saying that. I agree with you, and I said earlier, I think that the Birminghams are some of the laziest lions I've ever come across. They never seem to be moving about. They're always doing as little as possible. But, Birmingham boys, let me tell you, you can redeem yourself tonight, and one night only, and this is a special. It's lasting for the next 8 minutes. If you do a big roar by the time the show ends, I will forgive you, and I will take back everything I've said about you being lazy. I can promise you this, and I will only sing praises about all the 3 of you. Nena, you haven't got much to say either. He's just laying in the grass. I haven't seen him even turn over once, so I don't think that he's ready to wake up anytime soon either. Come on now, boys. Do us this favor. As we sit here in the complete darkness, other than the light coming from our vehicles and the twinkle from the stars, Aaron, you're wondering how long do male lions typically live for? It's actually not a very long time. So, Aaron, the average age is about 10 years old. If they push it to 12, that is an exceptionally old male lion. However, it's a tough life for these boys. Even if they can just make it to adulthood, that's an achievement. Because once they get chased out of the pride, which is normally 2.5, 3 years old, the next couple of years, the next 2-3 years of their life is quite difficult as they're moving in between other males' territories, just trying to keep out of sight. And if they're caught, they'll be lucky to come off with a couple of scratches. And if not, it can actually, well, the big males in that area will just end their lives, really. So it's even just tough trying to make it back, of course, to adulthood. And then once you get that, you can imagine, you've seen these boys, they've had a couple of altercations with the Matimbas, but they also quite happily chase the Matimbas out of the area. And they're strong and fit at the moment, so any contenders that want to come through need to be bringing their A game. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves on the wrong side of the claws of the Birmingham. Which is great. I wouldn't mind, of course, seeing a bit of an argument between the Birminghams and perhaps another coalition of males that come through. It would be quite exciting. I'm sure you all agree too. But we're going to hop back aboard onto Tristan's vehicle. He's doing the Bush Baby Challenge. He's got 2. Let's see if he can find a 3rd one. I think we've been so lucky today. We've had such variety. And, before the show ends, quickly, I'd have to do a quick quiz. And maybe, Megan, you can quickly add it up for us. So who do you think had the cutest sighting today? Was it the hippos splashing about? You've got to be very, very quick. Or was it Tristan's hyena cubs? Hashtag Safari Live. Let's go. We'll just have a little guess. I think that the hyena cubs would have been absolutely divine to watch as one. I'm envious because I haven't had little cubs come up to my vehicle in a very, very long time. But those little darling hippos were also quite special today as well. So of course it's not a competition. Oh, Megan's just whispered into my ear and she says that she's very sorry to disappoint me and she thinks that the hyenas have won. Rats.